She was married for 51 years. Her husband dies on a Tuesday. By Friday, she is in an ambulance, clutching her chest, unable to breathe, and she is telling the paramedics the same thing over and over. It feels like my heart is breaking. We have a phrase for this. We have had it for centuries. She died of a broken heart. We say it at funerals, we put it in songs and poems and old love stories, and every single time we say it, we mean it as a metaphor, a beautiful, sad, poetic way of describing grief. Nobody actually believes a heart can break. Except it can. Literally, physically. It has a name, it has a shape, it shows up on a scan, and it can kill you. This is one of the strangest things the human body is capable of doing, and for most of human history, we walked right past it because we were so sure the phrase was just poetry. It isn't. So let me tell you what actually happens inside your chest when your heart breaks, and why the folklore turned out to be more accurate than the science. Go back to that woman in the ambulance. She gets to the hospital, and everything looks exactly like a heart attack. The crushing chest pain, the shortness of breath, her ECG is abnormal, her blood is full of the same enzymes that spill out when heart muscle is dying. Any doctor in the world would look at her and think, this woman is having a massive heart attack, and they would rush her into the catheter lab to find the blocked artery and open it back up. And here is where it gets strange. They go looking for the blockage, and there isn't one. Her arteries are clean, clear, wide open. There is no clot, no blockage, nothing physically stopping the blood. By every rule of cardiology, her heart should be fine. And yet part of it has stopped working. One section of the muscle has simply given up and stopped squeezing, while the rest keeps beating around it. So if it wasn't a blocked artery, what nearly killed her? The answer was first described in Japan in 1990 by a doctor named Hikaru Sato, and the name he gave it tells you everything. He called it takotsubo. It is the Japanese word for an octopus trap. A round pot with a fat, bulging bottom and a narrow little neck that fishermen drop to the sea floor to catch octopus. Why would a doctor name a heart condition after a fishing pot? Because that is what the heart turns into. When this happens, the bottom tip of the left ventricle, the main pumping chamber, balloons outward and freezes. It stops moving. Meanwhile, the top of the chamber, the neck, keeps contracting normally. And when you take a picture of that heart mid-beat, the shape is unmistakable. A big rounded bulging bottom and a pinched narrow neck. The heart has physically deformed itself into the exact shape of a trap used to catch octopus. That is not a metaphor a poet invented. That is a shape a cardiologist sees on a screen. A broken heart has a shape, and it looks like a jar for catching sea creatures. Now for the part that should genuinely unsettle you. What causes it? It is not a blockage. It is not a virus. It is not something that got into the body from outside. It is grief, or shock, or terror, or heartbreak. A purely emotional event, something that happens entirely inside your mind, reaches down and physically injures a muscle in your chest. Here is the mechanism, because this is the whole key. When you experience an overwhelming emotional shock, your brain does what it has always done in a crisis. It floods your body with stress hormones, adrenaline chief among them. This is the same system that saved your ancestors, the fight or flight response, the chemical surge that lets a terrified human suddenly run faster, hit harder, and survive a life or death moment. In small, sharp doses, it is one of the most useful tools evolution ever gave us. But in a moment of extreme, crushing grief, that surge does not stay small. The levels of stress hormones that flood the body during one of these events can climb higher than the levels seen in people who are actually having a heart attack. And the heart muscle, the very organ this system is supposed to protect, gets drowned in it. The apex of the ventricle, which appears to be especially sensitive to these hormones, essentially gets overwhelmed and stunned. It freezes. It stops pumping. The chemical that was built to keep you alive turns on the one organ you cannot live without. Sit with that for a second, because it is the cruelest design flaw in the whole body. The system your brain fires to protect you in a crisis is the exact thing that can stop your heart. Your own survival response becomes the weapon. You are not killed by the loss. You are killed by your body's reaction to the loss. And just when you think you understand it, this condition does something that flips the entire story on its head. Because it is not only triggered by grief, doctors kept finding cases where the person had not lost anyone at all. They had won the lottery, they had thrown a surprise party, they had been reunited with a child they had not seen in years. They had walked into a room full of people shouting congratulations. These people were having the best moment of their lives, and their hearts deformed into the shape of a trap and started to fail. They gave it a second name for these cases, happy heart syndrome. And that detail rewrites everything, because it means the heart is not breaking from sadness. It never was. The heart cannot actually tell the difference between the worst news of your life and the best news of your life. To the heart, they are the same event. A wave of overwhelming emotions so large that the body dumps a flood of chemicals into the blood, and the muscle cannot handle the tide. Your heart does not break from heartbreak. It breaks from intensity. Grief and joy, at their absolute peak, arrive at your heart wearing the same face. Now, who does this happen to? And here the pattern is stark. The overwhelming majority of cases, somewhere around 80 to 90%, are women, and most of them are past menopause. The leading explanation is estrogen. Estrogen appears to protect the heart, calming its response to those stress hormones. And after menopause, when estrogen levels fall, that shield comes down. The heart is left more exposed to its own chemistry. But there is a darker twist buried in the numbers. A study of nearly 200,000 patients in the United States found that while women get this condition far more often, men who get it are more than twice as likely to die from it. Around 11% of the men, compared with about 5.5% of the women. It hunts women far more often, but it kills men far more efficiently. Nobody fully understands why, and it is one of the many things about this condition that researchers are still working out. So let me give you the part that actually matters if you have ever worried about this, because I do not want to leave you with only the fear. In most cases, a broken heart heals. This condition is usually temporary. The stunned muscle is not dead the way it would be after a real heart attack. It is shocked, and shock can wear off. In most patients, the heart slowly returns to its normal shape and its normal function over about 3 weeks. The bulging bottom deflates. The trap opens back up. The person walks out of the hospital with a heart that works again. But not always. And that is the honest, uncomfortable truth of it. While it usually heals, it can cause the heart to fail, it can throw the heartbeat into dangerous rhythms, and it can, in a real number of cases, kill. The phrase people used for centuries, the one we all assumed was just something you say to be poetic, describes a condition that sends people to intensive care and does not always let them leave. And that is what gets me about this whole thing. For as long as humans have been writing anything down, we have told stories about the widow who followed her husband within the week, the parent who never recovered from losing a child and simply faded. We watched it happen again and again, and we decided it was folklore, a sentimental idea, something that felt true but obviously wasn't, because a heart is just a pump, and pumps don't care how you feel. We were wrong. The heart does care. It is wired directly into the part of you that grieves, and that connection runs both ways. The people telling those old stories were not being poetic. They were reporting something real that medicine would not catch up to until 1990, when a doctor in Japan looked at a strange deformed heart, thought of a jar for catching octopus, and finally gave a name to the thing everyone had always known and nobody could prove. So the next time you hear that someone died of a broken heart, understand that you are not hearing a metaphor. You are hearing a diagnosis. It was never just a saying. It was a description. We just needed a few thousand years and a picture of an octopus trap to finally believe it.